Dr. G. Kim felt her stomach twist as she looked out at the alien world below. The planet Kepler 438b looked like a nightmare made real. Red skies, twisted black trees, and creatures that moved in the shadows. She had volunteered for this mission 3 months ago, back when it seemed like an amazing opportunity. Now, standing in the cold metal corridor of the research station, Frontier's Edge, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. "You'll be fine in there," Captain Tay Park said, trying to sound confident, but G could see the worry in his eyes. Everyone knew what lived on this planet. The locals called them hunters, creatures that looked almost human but moved like wild animals. They had long, sharp claws that could slice through metal and work together like a pack of wolves. G nodded and picked up her equipment bag. It felt heavier than usual, maybe because her hands were shaking. Inside were 3 days' worth of food, water purification tablets, and emergency medical supplies. The observation pod was supposed to be completely safe. Thick walls, locked doors, and enough air to last a week if needed. Min and Ho will be collecting samples about 2 kilometers from your position. Tay continued, pointing to the map. "You'll have full communication with us at all times. If anything goes wrong, hit the emergency beacon and we'll come get you immediately." Min Lee and Ho Choi were the team's biology experts. They'd been studying alien life forms for years and knew how dangerous these hunters could be. Ho had scars on his left arm from their last mission on Europa. Not from aliens, but from a simple equipment malfunction. That's how dangerous space exploration was, even without predators. G looked at the photos again. The hunters stood about, 7 feet tall with long muscular arms and legs. Their eyes glowed in the dark and they had sharp teeth like a shark. But what made them really dangerous was their intelligence. They used tools, set traps, and could solve complex problems. Some researchers thought they might even have their own language. "Why do we need someone in the observation pod anyway?" G asked. "Can't we just use cameras?" Tay shook his head. "The electromagnetic interference from the planet's core messes with our equipment. We need human eyes to watch for patterns the cameras might miss. Plus, someone needs to coordinate the surface team's movements in real time." The observation pod itself looked like a small metal box with windows. Inside there was barely enough room for one person, a chair, a small desk with computer equipment, and a narrow area to sleep. The walls were made of the same material they used for spacecraft, strong enough to survive asteroid impacts. "How long have these hunters been on the planet?" G asked, trying to make conversation and calm her nerves. "Our xenoarchaeology team thinks they've been here for thousands of years," Min answered. "But they've become more aggressive recently. Something changed about 6 months ago." Ho nodded grimly. "We've lost 3 researchers in the past year. They followed all safety protocols, stayed in groups, never went out at night, but somehow the hunters still got them." The thought made G's mouth go dry. She'd read the reports, gear scattered everywhere, signs of a struggle, but no bodies ever found. Some people thought the hunters ate their victims. Others believed they were taken alive for some unknown purpose. "Your pod has multiple backup systems," Tay assured her. "If the main power fails, there's a secondary generator. If that fails, there's a manual override for the doors. The structure itself is designed to withstand a direct impact from a hunter's claws." But G had heard whispers among the crew. There were stories about weird sounds coming from empty areas of the ship, tools going missing, and scratches appearing on walls overnight. Some people thought a hunter had already made it aboard. Others said it was just space madness, the kind of paranoia that hit people on long missions. "The important thing is to stay calm and follow protocol," Tay said. "Don't try to be a hero. Your job is to observe and report. Let Min and Ho handle everything else." G picked up the communication device, a small headset that would keep her connected to the surface team and the ship. The battery was supposed to last for 5 days, more than enough for their planned 3-day mission. As she headed toward the shuttle bay, G heard the familiar hum of the ship's engines. They were entering orbit now, preparing for the dangerous descent to the planet's surface. Through the windows, she could see the swirling red clouds that covered Kepler 438b. Somewhere down there, in the darkness between those twisted trees, the hunters were waiting. The shuttle itself was small and cramped, designed for short trips between the ship and planetary surfaces. G strapped herself in next to Min and Ho, trying not to think about what would happen if the shuttle crashed. On this planet, they wouldn't last 5 minutes outside. "Ready?" Tay asked from the pilot's seat. G took a deep breath and nodded. She was as ready as she'd ever be. The electromagnetic storm hit like a giant invisible fist slamming into the planet. One moment, G was settling into her observation pod, watching Min and Ho move carefully across the alien landscape through her sensors. The next moment, everything went crazy. Purple lightning crackled across the sky in patterns that hurt to look at. The pod's instruments started going wild, needles spinning, screens flickering, alarms blaring. G grabbed her communication headset, but all she heard was static mixed with a horrible screeching sound. "Surface team, do you copy?" She spoke into the microphone, trying to keep her voice steady. Nothing. Just that awful noise that sounded almost like screaming. Through the pod's thick window, she could see the landscape changing. The red sky was turning darker, almost black, and the twisted trees were swaying back and forth even though there was no wind. The air itself seemed to be moving, like it was alive. On the ship above, Yoon Kim was fighting a losing battle with the communication systems. "I'm getting nothing from the surface," she reported to Captain Tay, her fingers flying over the controls. "The storm is interfering with everything. Radio, satellite, even our emergency frequencies." Tay grabbed the microphone. "This is Captain Park to surface team. Please respond immediately. Static." Then, for just a moment, G's voice came through, broken and distorted. "Strange readings. Something's inside the transmission cut off completely. How long do we have?" Tay asked the ship's engineer, Da-hoon Jung. Da-hoon was staring at his instruments, his face pale. "The storm is getting stronger. If we don't leave orbit in the next 10 minutes, we won't be able to escape the electromagnetic field. Our engines will shut down, and we'll crash." "What about the surface team?" "Sir, if we stay, we all die. If we leave now, at least some of us survive." Down in the pod, G was discovering that she wasn't alone. Deep scratches had appeared on the metal walls. Fresh ones still gleaming where the metal had been torn. She hadn't seen anyone enter. She hadn't heard anything. But something was definitely in there with her. The pod suddenly felt much smaller. Every shadow looked threatening. Every sound made her jump. She grabbed a heavy wrench from the toolkit and held it like a weapon, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip it. Back on the ship, the argument was getting heated. "We can't leave them," Min's wife Hana pleaded. She worked in the ship's medical bay and wasn't part of the mission, but she'd heard the emergency calls. "There has to be another way. The shuttle barely made it back before the storm hit," Tay explained, his voice heavy with guilt. "The electromagnetic interference would tear it apart if we tried to go back now." Ho's brother, who worked in maintenance, stepped forward. "My brother is down there. You can't just abandon them." "I'm not abandoning anyone," Tay snapped, but his voice broke a little. "The storm will pass in 48 to 72 hours. As soon as it's safe, we go back." Yoon was still trying different frequencies, hoping to reach the surface. "Maybe if I boost the signal through the auxiliary." "Yoon, stop." Tay's voice was firm but gentle. "We've tried everything. Da-hoon, prepare for departure." In the observation pod, G was learning just how wrong things had gone. The creature, she could hear it moving around in the darkness, wasn't trying to attack her. Not yet, anyway. It seemed to be exploring. She heard scratching sounds, like claws dragging across metal, and soft noises that almost sounded like it was talking to itself. The pod was equipped with motion sensors, but they weren't working properly due to the storm. The backup lighting kept flickering on and off, creating a horror movie atmosphere she definitely didn't need. "Think, G," she whispered to herself. "What do you know about these hunters? They were intelligent. They used tools. They hunted in packs usually, but this one seemed to be alone. Most importantly, they were curious about humans. That's why the research team was here in the first place." On the ship, the final countdown had begun. All stations prepare for emergency departure, Tay announced over the ship's speakers. We are leaving orbit immediately. Hana was crying now. Yoon kept trying the radio, even though everyone knew it was useless. Ho's brother punched a wall, leaving a dent in the metal. As soon as the storm passes, we come back, Tay promised. This isn't goodbye, it's just, see you later. But they all knew the truth. Space was full of see you laters that turned into permanent goodbyes. Equipment failed, people got sick, accidents happened, and now they were leaving 3 of their own on an alien planet with creatures that had killed researchers before. The ship's engines powered up with a deep rumble. Through the windows, the crew could see Kepler 438b getting smaller and smaller. Somewhere down there in that metal pod, G was beginning the longest 72 hours of her life. She didn't know that her 2 teammates on the surface were already dead. She didn't know that the hunter in her pod was injured and just as scared as she was. She didn't know that this moment would change everything, not just for her, but for both their species. All she knew was that she was alone, trapped with a killer, and nobody was coming to save her. The storm raged on. The first day was the worst. G sat in the corner of the observation pod, clutching the wrench so tightly her knuckles turned white. The hunter moved in the darkness like a ghost, and she could only catch glimpses of it when the emergency lights flickered on. She'd see a shadow here, a flash of movement there. Sometimes she heard breathing that wasn't her own. The worst part was the scratching, long, scraping sounds as claws dragged across the metal walls, leaving marks that looked like some kind of message she couldn't read. By the second day, exhaustion was setting in. G had barely slept, jumping awake every few minutes when she heard a sound. Her water was running low. She'd eaten only a few energy bars, saving the rest for later. But later was starting to look like a very long time away. The hunter had been busy during the night. When morning came, G discovered that some of her equipment had been moved. Not destroyed, carefully repositioned. Her tablet was now in the center of the room, angled toward the wall where the deepest scratches were. "What do you want?" she whispered into the dim light. The hunter stepped into view for the first time since entering the pod. G gasped and pressed herself against the wall. It was even taller than the photos had shown, its long arms hanging at its sides. But something was wrong with it. Its left arm was held awkwardly and dark liquid dripped from beneath what looked like makeshift bandages. The creature was injured. Badly. G watched as the hunter picked up a torn piece of metal from the floor. Instead of using it as a weapon, it began scratching on the wall in deliberate patterns. Not random marks. These were purposeful, almost like writing. "You're trying to communicate," she realized. The hunter stopped and looked at her directly. Its eyes didn't glow like the report said. They were dark, almost human-like, with an intelligence that made her stomach clench. Over the next few hours, G watched the hunter work. It had fashioned a crude bandage from fabric torn from its own clothing. It moved slowly, carefully, like someone in constant pain. When it thought she wasn't looking, it would lean against the wall and close its eyes. That night, something changed. G woke up to find a small pile of torn metal scraps near her feet. They'd been arranged in a specific pattern, almost like a gift. She looked up to see the hunter watching her from across the pod. "You're not trying to kill me," she said softly. "You're trapped here too, aren't you?" The third day brought a new realization. G was studying the scratch marks on the walls when she noticed they formed patterns, circles connected by lines. Some looked like star charts, others might have been maps. The hunter had been documenting something, maybe even trying to leave. A record. Her tablet's battery was dying, but before it went dead completely, G used it to take photos of the marks. The hunter watched this activity with what seemed like approval, making soft clicking sounds that might have been its version of speech. The food situation was getting desperate. G had 1 energy bar left and maybe a day's worth of water. The mine. Hunter hadn't eaten anything she could see, but it was getting weaker. Sometimes it would stumble, and those human-like eyes showed pain that went beyond physical injury. That afternoon, the hunter did something unexpected. It took one of the metal scraps it had been using to write and carefully pushed it toward G's feet. When she picked it up, she saw it was covered with symbols, but these were different from the others. Simpler, like someone teaching a child to write. "You're trying to teach me your language," she breathed. The clicking sounds came again, and this time G was sure they were words. The hunter pointed to itself, then to the tablet, then to G. It wanted her to understand something important. By evening, they had established a basic communication system. The hunter would make clicks and gestures. G would respond with words and pointing. It was primitive, but it worked. Slowly, she began to understand what had happened. The hunter wasn't alone. Its people were out there watching. They'd been studying humans for a long time, much longer than anyone on Earth suspected. This hunter had been chosen for a special mission, but something had gone wrong. The electromagnetic storm hadn't been natural. The hunter's people had caused it, trying to ground the human ship and create an opportunity for contact. But they'd miscalculated. Instead of bringing the species together, they'd created a disaster. Now this hunter was dying, probably from radiation poisoning caused by the storm its own people had created. It was trapped with G, both of them victims of a plan gone terribly wrong. As the third night fell, G made a decision that would have seemed impossible just days before. The hunter was obviously suffering, probably more thirsty than she was. She took her last bottle of water and, hands shaking, offered it to the alien. The hunter looked at her for a long moment, then made a sound that could only be described as grateful. As it drank, G saw something that changed everything. A tear running down its face. These weren't monsters. They were just people from another world trying to make contact with humanity. And now they were both going to die because of a misunderstanding that no one had meant to happen. The hunt had become something else entirely. This wasn't about predator and prey anymore. It was about two beings from different worlds, trying to bridge an impossible gap before time ran out. The fourth day changed everything. She woke up feeling weak from hunger and dehydration, but something was different. The hunter was sitting upright near the wall, and it had arranged small metal pieces in careful rows. When it saw her stirring, it made those clicking sounds again and pointed to the patterns. This time G looked closer. The metal pieces weren't random. They formed shapes, stars, planets. A whole solar system map was laid out in front of her. "This is your home," she whispered, pointing to one of the larger pieces. The hunter nodded, an oddly human gesture that made G's heart skip. It pointed to other pieces, then to itself, then to her. Slowly, a story began to emerge. The hunter's people had names that sounded like wind chimes when spoken, beautiful melodic sounds that G couldn't reproduce with her human vocal cords. But they had been watching Earth for generations. Learning human languages, studying human culture, trying to decide the best way to make contact. This hunter, who G started calling Hana because the name felt right, had volunteered for the mission. It was supposed to be simple. Create a situation where peaceful contact could happen. The storm was meant to temporarily disable the human ship, forcing a meeting. But something had gone wrong. Hana showed her what happened through drawings made with her fingertip on the dusty pod floor. The storm was too strong. It killed Min and Ho instantly when their equipment overloaded. The electromagnetic pulse that was supposed to create a communication window instead created chaos. "You're not a killer," G realized, looking at Hana's bandaged arm. "You tried to save them." Hana made a sound that might have been agreement. It drew more pictures, stick figures showing it trying to reach the fallen humans, getting injured in the process. The electromagnetic discharge had hurt it badly, probably damaging its internal organs. By afternoon, they had developed a better communication system. Hana would draw, point, and make sounds. G would respond with words and gestures. They discovered that Hana understood more English than it could speak. Its people had been monitoring human communication for decades. The revelation that shocked G the most came when Hana showed her a small device it had been hiding. The device looked like a smooth stone, But when Hana touched it with one long finger, it projected holographic images into the air. Images of Earth, of humans going about their daily lives, of children playing in parks, people working in fields, families gathering for meals. "You've been watching us all this time," Ji breathed. Hana clicked affirmatively and touched the device again. New images appeared. Hana's people in their own world. They looked different from Hana with shorter limbs and lighter-colored skin, but they were clearly the same species. They lived in cities that looked like they were carved from crystal, traveled in vehicles that floated above the ground, and had families just like humans did. The most surprising image was of human faces on their viewing screens. Hana's people had been studying humans not as potential threats or resources, but with genuine curiosity and affection. They thought humans were fascinating, creative, and worth getting to know. "But why the secrecy?" Ji asked. "Why not just introduce yourselves?" Hana drew more pictures, long, sad ones showing past attempts at contact between species. War, death, fear, misunderstanding. Its people had learned from the history they'd observed on Earth. They'd seen what happened when different cultures met without preparation. They wanted to be careful, to find the right moment, the right way, the right people. That evening, Hana did something that changed how Ji saw everything. It opened its medical kit, a collection of plants and what looked like natural remedies. With careful gestures, it showed Ji how to prepare a drink from some dried leaves. "This is medicine?" Ji asked. Hana nodded and mimed being sick, then drinking, then feeling better. It was offering to help her, even though it was the one who was injured. As Ji carefully prepared the drink following Hana's instructions, she realized how wrong everyone had been. The hunters didn't hunt humans for food or sport. They were called hunters because they hunted for knowledge, for understanding, for connection. The drink tasted bitter, but immediately made her feel stronger. Hana watched her carefully, clicking, with what sounded like satisfaction when she finished it. "Your people," Ji said, gesturing to the images still floating above the device. "They'll come looking for you." Hana looked sad. It drew a picture in the dust. The ship leaving, the storm, time passing. Its people thought it was dead. The electromagnetic interference meant no communication was possible. As the fourth night fell, Ji and Hana sat together in comfortable silence. The pod didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a bridge between two worlds. Hana showed her one last image that night, a picture of the human crew that had abandoned her. But instead of anger or blame in Hana's posture, there was understanding. It knew they'd had no choice. "When they come back," Ji promised, "I'll tell them the truth. About you, about your people, about everything." Hana made a sound that was definitely agreement, tinged with hope. Two species that had been separated by space, fear, and misunderstanding were finally beginning to truly see each other. Not as hunter and prey, not as threats, but as the friends they could become. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight neither of them was alone. When the rescue shuttle finally broke through the clearing atmosphere of Kepler 438b, Ji was sitting calmly on the pod's floor, sharing water with Hana, from a small cup they'd fashioned from scrap metal. The alien was still weak, but had helped her prepare for this moment over the past 2 days. Captain Tay's voice crackled through the communication system for the first time in what felt like forever. "Surface team, this is rescue. Ji, are you alive? Please respond." Ji took a deep breath and raised the newly repaired radio. "Captain, this is Ji. I'm alive, and I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Do not, I repeat, do not, come in with weapons ready. You're about to meet our first ambassador to the stars." Dead silence on the comm. Through the pod's window, Ji could see the shuttle landing in a swirl of dust and alien vegetation. She watched as Tae, Yoon, and Da-hoon emerged wearing full protective gear, carrying heavy energy weapons. "Stand down, Captain," Ji called out, stepping out of the pod. Behind her, Hana moved slowly due to its injuries. "I need you to see something incredible." The crew stopped dead when they saw Hana. Their weapons rose automatically, trained on the tall figure standing beside G. Hana made a soft clicking sound, a sound G now recognized as its species' way of showing peaceful intent. "Lower your weapons," G said firmly. "This is Hana. It saved my life." "G, step away from it," Tae commanded, his voice shaking. "These creatures killed Min and Ho. We found their bodies during a quick flyover." "No," G said, standing between the crew and Hana. "They died in the electromagnetic storm. Hana tried to save them but got injured in the process. It's been protecting me for days." Hana activated the small device it had shown G earlier. The holographic images filled the air between them. Pictures of its people, their world, their long observations of humanity. Yoon gasped, lowering her weapon slightly. Those are real? Hana's people have been watching us for generations," Ji explained, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was revealing. "They're not hunters. They're explorers, like us. They want to make friends. But they've seen what happens when species meet unprepared. They've been trying to find the right way to introduce themselves." Dahoon pointed his scanner at the holographic display. "The energy readings are incredible. This technology is decades ahead of anything we have." Hana touched the device again, and new images appeared. These showed the planning for the contact mission, Hana volunteering, the miscalculation that made the storm too strong. It was a tragedy, not an attack. "They made a mistake," G continued. "The storm was supposed to create a brief communication window, not kill anyone. Hana has been suffering from radiation poisoning because of it." Tai slowly lowered his weapon. "How do you know all this?" G smiled for the first time in days. "We learned to talk to each other. Hana understands English better than it can speak it. Its people have been studying our language for years." As if to prove the point, Hana spoke for the first time in halting, accented English. "Sorry, for your friends. We want to help. Humans and my people. Become friends." The crew stood stunned. Yoon stepped forward cautiously. "Can you help with its injuries? Human medicine might not work, but..." Hana touched the device again. This time it showed images of a larger ship, hidden behind the planet's moon. Dozens of Hana's people waiting, wanting to help but afraid to reveal themselves after the failed contact attempt. "There are more of them?" Dahoon asked, excitement overriding his fear. Ji nodded. "Hana's family is out there. Its whole mission team, they think it's dead." Hana made more clicking sounds, then showed them the communication frequency it had been trying to use. Ji had helped it modify some equipment over the past days, creating a signal booster that might reach its people. "If we can amplify the signal, using our shuttle's communications array," Yoon said thoughtfully, "we might be able to reach them." The rescue mission was quickly becoming something else entirely. Humanity's first diplomatic meeting with an alien species. Over the next hour, they worked together. Hana provided technical guidance while Yoon and Dahoon connected their equipment. Ji translated between species, amazed at how quickly understanding could grow when people really wanted to communicate. When the contact was finally made, Hana's relief was obvious. Its people's response came quickly. A ship emerged from behind the moon, approaching slowly with obvious peaceful intent. That night, as both crews worked to set up proper translation equipment and medical stations, Hana sat with Ji under the alien stars. "This is how it should have been from the beginning," Ji said quietly. Hana nodded, then spoke carefully in English. "Your Captain Tae? Brave. Could have shot me, but he listened." "We're all learning," Ji replied. "Both our species." The first formal meeting between humans and the people Hana called the Star Watchers took place the next morning. There were awkward moments, translation errors that led to laughter, and the strange joy of two intelligent species recognizing each other as kindred spirits. Hana recovered fully thanks to a combination of its people's medicine and human medical techniques. More importantly, it became the bridge between two civilizations. Year later, when historians wrote about first contact, they always mentioned how close it came to disaster, how a simple misunderstanding almost led to war. But they also wrote about two beings, one human, one alien, trapped together, who chose to see past their differences and find their common ground. G kept her promise to tell the truth about what happened in that pod. But the truth was bigger than she'd imagined. It wasn't just about avoiding conflict. It was about the incredible things that could happen when beings from different worlds chose to trust each other. Hana often visited Earth after that, becoming one of the most important ambassadors in galactic history. It always remembered those days in the observation pod as the moment when two species learned that communication, understanding, and friendship could overcome any barrier. The hunt had become something beautiful, not a pursuit of prey, but a search for connection that changed both worlds forever.